Hey all, welcome back to another episode of Mastering Podcast and Video Interviews from Geek to Guru. I'm your host, Kurt Sasso, and today we're looking at the world of recording essentials. What do I use to record my podcast and video interviews? And I'm going to go through my complete equipment list, from the audio to the video setup, editing software, and really kind of a brief, quick overview of what I've used, even when I first started, to what I currently use today, and maybe what I may upgrade in the future as well too. So stick around. We'll talk about all of that in this episode. First things first, let's introduce the recording equipment and software you'll need for your podcast and video interview journey. Remember, you don't have to get the best equipment to start. Just make sure that you're always within your budget. You can always improve your equipment and your software later on, so don't feel like you have to go into debt when you're first starting out. For capturing great audio, it's the cornerstone of your setup, so you should have a high quality microphone. You can always have a great video, but if you can't hear the audio, it's really not worth recording. There are many different microphones that you can actually use, from cardioid to direct to everything like that. When I first started this journey, I had a really crappy microphone that I had to plug into my audio jack on the back with the 1/8 inch connector. It just didn't sound great. So when I actually got to upgrade my equipment, it was the Audio Technica AT2020. That was the very first USB microphone I got. Sound quality was amazing. I mean, it really worked out well. It was a desk microphone. I could angle it to however I wanted, and it just sounded beautiful. The bass quality was really good. It was very clear, and you could really understand everything that I was saying. So it was a really worthwhile microphone that I picked up, which I'll take to conventions and everything like that if for some reason I can't bring my audio setup. I also have a Zoom H6 as well for local recording too, so that's something you may want in the future as well too when we talk about our audio interface setup. There's a variety of different technology we'll get into later on. When I decided to upgrade this actual equipment, I went from the AT2020 to the Rode NT1 that you see on screen here. It's a great microphone. It picks up wonderful quality, has a pop filter and a shock mount that came with it. And while I was picking up this microphone, I ended up getting the Rode arm as well. So it's a microphone arm that hooks to my desk. It's very flexible, it's very movable, and it works great for what I need. There are many different arms and everything like that you can pick up in the future, but this works for what I need. If you have a microphone like the Rode NT1, you're going to have what's called an XLR connection, and that's a direct connection that has to be plugged into a soundboard or an audio interface board. It's not like you can just plug it into the back of your computer. There's no real software or hardware extensions for that in your system, so you have to get an audio interface. I have an older Behringer Xena 502. It's a 2-channel audio interface from years and years ago, and it still works great. I know there's an updated version of this, and I believe it's called the Q802. It's a similar setup to what I have. It's a little larger, but it still does exactly what you need. There are a variety of other audio interfaces out there, so find the one that fits your budget. This came with like a podcaster setup, so you can search for podcasting audio interface, and maybe you'll get a package deal where you'll get like a cheaper microphone and stand along with your audio interface and a set of headphones. So if you want an all-in-one type of audio interface equipment, try to find something like that as well too. There are digital versions out there, I'm sure, as well, and I'm sure there's many other videos on what is the best audio interface for a podcast or video interview setup. Find what works best for you in your budget and your price range, and find what works best for you. When it comes to software, you'll need recording and editing tools. Depending on what you're trying to accomplish, if you're doing both a video show and a podcast, then the software you need can usually be an all-in-one type software. There's a variety of different softwares that I still use to this day. From an audio perspective, Audacity is a fantastic free option for beginners for podcasting, where you can just install the software, select your microphone, and you can press record in the software itself. The editing capabilities of the plugins from the base plugins of the actual software are still great, but you can actually download other plugins that will give you a little more flexibility and range when it comes to using Audacity. Adobe Audition has software as well. Adobe is a great all encompassing software. What you have to watch out for is there a subscription model or payments for using that type of software? There might be a free alternative that's very limited in what you can do. For that, I would still recommend going back to Audacity until you can find a piece of software that works for your audio editing needs. From a video perspective, there are many different options as well too. How do I record my show? I use Zoom or StreamYard to actually record a one-on-one interview, and I record locally as well. I use XSplit Pro Broadcaster software in order to record the software locally, because you can have technical issues with, say, Zoom or StreamYard, and if you lose your video recording or if you lose your interview, then you'll have to schedule the guest back on the show, and it's a lot of time, a lot of hassle. So make sure you're at least recording locally in some way, shape, or form with software, say like XSplit, or you can record locally with Zoom as well too. But I would always have a backup just in case. Because I've recorded locally, it's actually saved me a lot of time and headaches when, say, Zoom has crashed or the app has actually restarted in the middle of an interview. So I was very fortunate that I was still able to keep the recording I already had. That's how I record my actual interviews on a one-on-one basis. And it's flexible enough that I can have more than one guest on the show, and I can switch between different scenes. And I can talk about that in a later episode as well. From a video editing perspective, there are so many out there. Personally, for me, I actually used Adobe Premiere CS6 for a good number of years. Now there's Adobe Premiere Pro that is currently out there. It's a great piece of software. It is a subscription based software. So if you want to pay on a monthly basis and it gives you everything that you need, by all means, please go for it. For me, I thought it was an amazing software. I just couldn't afford the cost on a monthly basis. After I was done using Premiere, DaVinci Resolve is the software I currently use for my video and audio editing. I still use Audacity as well too, just as a final cleanup, but DaVinci Resolve is what I use because it is a multifunctional piece of software. It gives me so much flexibility and freedom, and it's an industry standard for video editing software. Great for films, great for podcasts, great for shows. You have so much flexibility, you have color correction, you have everything that you could possibly imagine. And there's some really amazing tutorials on YouTube that you can search and get a really quick rundown on how to utilize this software in a very efficient manner as well too. We'll talk about your video editing process in future episodes as well. So even if you're just starting to do your video interview itself, you have the flexibility to export your video as well as export your audio into separate WAV or MP3 files. So say you want to do your video show, but down the road you're like, oh man, I really wish that I could get all of my audio and put it up as a podcast now because my show is so successful. You've already done that. You've already taken the time to extract your audio while you extracted your video in order to upload it to your YouTube channel. Say down the road you want to actually release a podcast. Now you already have your edited audio, and now you can upload it to your podcasting server or host or wherever it actually is. And you've taken that extra step ahead of time so you don't have to go back and start doing, say, 1,000+ episodes and release the audio content well after the fact. You've future-proofed yourself. Other software I've started to use more recently is CapCut. But CapCut allows you to actually put subtitles on your videos and actually format your subtitles to be larger, smaller, colored as you need to highlight, say, certain words. It has a lot of more functionality and flexibility. Allows you to have really cool transitions as well too. So if you're looking to create some short form content that's rather quick and easy to use, there's like a 5-minute video on how to use CapCut, and it's amazing on how to create your own subtitles. Now, I know DaVinci Resolve has future updates coming where it will automatically generate like what CapCut does. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure Adobe Premiere has something similar as well too. It's all about readability and flexibility for your shows. You want to be able to have someone look at your show online in some format, shape, or form, and especially with the mobile content, you want to be able to have them read it, say if they're on a subway or if they're traveling or whatever the case may be, and they can't actually have loud audio coming through. So what camera do I use, or what camera to use? For me, I still use an old Logitech 920C. It's an older webcam, but it still checks out, if you know that reference. I'm sure I could hook up a DSLR camera and record that way, and I will do that, but I'm kind of limited by desk space myself personally. I know the video quality, if I use the DSLR, will be a lot better because the camera has a better video framework. It also has a way better lens than what the Logitech currently has. I'm sure I'd probably use a 24 millimeter depending on what distance I had it set to and what angle as well. But if you're limited to budget, and always remember, keep within your budget, $50 to $100 webcam, modify it in the actual settings of your software that comes with the camera itself, get some good lighting, and honestly, you can look like this basically, and it will turn out very well for what you need to record. I know soundproofing is another thing that you should probably use in your house or your home or your room, but it really depends on the situation. In order to soundproof your location, there's a variety of different materials you can use. There's foam, there's panels, there's bass traps, there's bass traps, but there's also software as well. And I know they can make all the difference in the world, but this also depends on where your computer is set up, or how many fans you have in your computer, or if you're running a water cooler setup, or other factors like you're beside a busy road, you have a loud apartment complex, you have neighbors, you have a party going on, you have alarms going off. There's a variety of different things you have to understand in order to make your setup truly soundproof. You'll never be perfectly 100% soundproof, but you do what you can with what you have. There's also software as well that can actually eliminate a lot of the background noise. Personally, I use NVIDIA Broadcast, and it has the ability to integrate with your video camera as well as your microphone so that you can actually clean up the noise around you. And I know there's noise suppression and there's other software as well too. XSplit has a version of that as well. Whatever software you're using has some form of noise filtering or canceling. Just make sure when you're doing a software based setup like NVIDIA Broadcaster, you do this in small increments and you work through the process. The last thing you want to do is crank it up all the way and start working backwards to figure out your level. As you're talking, as you're recording, and as you're doing your microphone setup, just so that you're testing yourself, figure out what your lowest level is if you're talking quietly, or if you have a naturally low voice as well too. And you'll figure out what your limit is for your noise canceling software. Now that you have the necessary equipment and software, let's move on to the crucial tips for achieving high quality audio and video recordings. Optimize your recording environment. Find a quiet place and minimize your background noise. If possible, use soundproofing materials like foam panels or curtains to create a noise-free zone. Use software as well to aid in that extra level of soundproofing. You can't always fix things in post, so don't think you can. If your audio quality is bad, you're not going to be able to relay your message clearly and engage with your audience. Proper microphone placement. Position your microphone correctly to capture your voice effectively. Aim for a distance about 6 to 8 inches from the microphone and speak directly into it. Now, this depends on your setup. For myself, what I do, because I have a corner desk and I'm on a bit of an angle, my microphone can't cleanly set where it would be over the screen right in front of me, where it would say be above my face. So I have to have it set up in a more direct angle. Now, I'm actually angled on a 45. I'm talking directly into the microphone here. But what I also like to do is figure out a test this way. So I'm actually putting a hand width and a half in front of my face. Now, it depends on how large your hand is as well, too. So figure out what good distance works for you. Sometimes maybe you have to move it closer or farther away. Don't be afraid, though, to find a way to angle your arm above your face so that it's facing down. Look at great setups like, say, Howard Stern or any radio disc jockey that's kind of out there of how they place the microphone. Look up microphone placements for radio stations. That usually is kind of the best way to figure out how it's placed, because 99% of the time it's not going to be situated on your desk. it's going to be in some way, shape, or form within the cone of your actual vocal range, but it also depends on what style of microphone you have. And you can look up microphone styles of what you need in the future. Sometimes there's a more direct approach, but that's a very limited range. I have a cardioid microphone here where the angle is facing directly forward like this. That's why I'm speaking directly into it. There are other microphones where it detects everything around it as well too, and that's great for multi-person setup, but it may not always give you the clearest audio. Monitor audio levels. Keep an eye on your audio levels to prevent clipping or distortion. Aim for a clear, consistent volume and avoid letting it peak into the red. There's a great range out there for audio quality. You have to figure out a couple of things though. What is the level of your voice? What is the range of your voice? When you get excited, you're going to naturally talk higher as well too. If you're a quiet person, you're going to naturally talk lower, so it may reach a lower level. Myself, I have a range of actually between negative 24 and negative 40. That is my vocal range. And it is very low for my voice, but that's just genetics. What the limitation is for me specifically is between noise canceling and the noise around me and this microphone. I have a very limited range that I have to actively make sure that I project my voice so that it hits the above negative 24 range. What I mean by this is the following. There are peak audio levels, there are average audio levels, and there are dynamic range levels. And these are all registered in decibels. The peak audio level is a measure on how loud or the loudest parts of your audio are. If you keep it between negative 3 decibels and negative 6 decibels, this will avoid not only distortion but clipping. It's going to peak and hit in the red. And that's what you don't want to happen. Average audio level is loudness minus loofs. This measures how loud your whole audio sounds to the listener. If you aim for a loudness level of negative 16 to negative 20 loofs, it'll make a good balance overall for your show. In simple terms, loofs, L-U-F-S, helps maintain a consistent loudness level in audio, making it easier for your audience to enjoy your content without constantly reaching for the volume control. It's a standard that many streaming platforms and broadcasters use to ensure a uniform listening experience for their viewers or listeners. Once my episode is completely edited and I'm extracting the audio, I make sure I bring it into Audacity and I set it to a negative 8 decibel level for consistent listening experience. The last item in monitoring your audio levels that you need to keep aware of is your dynamic range. The dynamic range is like the gap between your loudest and your quietest parts of your audio. If you keep it between 12 and 18 decibels, this really helps your audio sound just right, and it doesn't sound too monotone or too wild. Effective editing. After you record your video or your podcast, or both, you should use your chosen editing software. Like for myself, I use DaVinci Resolve to fine-tune not only your audio, but also your video as well. As long as you remove your background noise and adjust your EQ settings, as well as editing your video to, say, include interactive elements, as well as editing your questions if you're doing an interview style, or editing your shorts as well too to have more visual elements. Your editing software is really the key to make this all effective, as well as your creativity too. While you can edit your audio on the go, it's best if you do your complete edit first and then run your audio through, say, Audacity or Isotope to clean it up. There's a variety of different pre-programs you can run to actually clean up your audio as a whole. You can make a macro to actually do all of this stuff. We can talk about that in future episodes, but there's a process to kind of overall clean up your audio, make it sound great, make it sound consistent, and make it sound just amazing as well too. Use quality headphones. If you invest in quality headphones off the bat, like say the Audio-Technica version of these headphones is really critical. Personally for me, I use the Sennheiser HD280, great set of headphones. It plugs directly into my audio interface board. I've had no issues with them, and I've actually not had to replace them. Sound great. They allow me to hear subtle details and imperfections, not only in my own audio, but also in my guest's audio as well too. When it comes to high quality headphones, this may be an initial cost for you, but it is well worth it in the end, as long as you take care of your equipment. Consider a mixer. While there is great software out there in order to control what your audio sounds like or what you sound like during an interview, you should really invest in an audio mixer in some way, shape, or form. I use the Behringer Xena 502, but there's a new updated model, or a newer updated model, Behringer Xena Q802 USB, which allows you a lot more functionality and flexibility, but it gives you the same manual quality in terms of modifying your audio. It's probably something I'm going to invest in the future, or whatever the next model is of the Behringer as well. And if you don't know what all the buttons do and the knobs do on your actual audio interface, you could always do a YouTube search on it. I'm sure there's many amazing tutorials out there that will help you. But if you really want to fine tune and hone in your voice specifically for your voice style, you should really get an audio tech that's online to listen to your voice and work with you on your actual audio device to make it sound to the best of its ability. They have more experience, and it's amazing what they can do to really hone your voice in. And you can always ask questions as well. Why am I doing this knob, or why am I turning this knob? What is the reasoning behind it? And it'll really get you to better understand not only your voice style and quality, but also your equipment as well. Use microphone isolation. If you're in a less than ideal recording space, you can use a reflection filter, you can use foam, you can use a blanket around you, you can use a pop filter. You can find ways to isolate and shield the noise around you, as well as reducing the ambient noise as well, like say your computer. It will improve your audio quality. Remember, the software option is an option as well, and then editing after the fact if you cleaned it up as best as you can before you press record. Consider a shock mount. While not always necessary, a shock mount like the Rode PSM1, which is what I have, can further reduce vibrations and handle noise for cleaner recordings. But if you talk with your hands and you hit your microphone like what I just did, or you hit your shock mount, it will affect your audio. Be aware if you're a creator that talks with your hands, because you can't always fix it in post. And there you have it. That's a list, all the equipment that I've used over the years that may help you on your path to becoming a YouTube content creator, a video interviewer, or even a podcaster as well. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on the equipment that you're currently using. So comment down below, let me know what you're actually using, and maybe it'll give me an incentive to upgrade my own equipment as well. So I'd love to hear your tech stuff that you use on your journey. Thanks for joining, and until next time, keep those conversations flowing. Did you enjoy this video? Give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and make sure to subscribe for more insightful content. And as always, stay tuned on Two Geeks Talking.